Welcome back to Making It Awkward. I'm your host, Jessica Wilson. I decided to take a break from the noise for a sec and instead dive into reality TV. Today's episode is a review of one of the loveliest reality shows I've ever seen. I got to talk with Kent Thomas, whose voice you may remember from the episode on Discount Ozempic, and the one about feeding his baby formula, aka ultra-processed beverages. He's a queer social worker who just started his Substack titled Beyond the Ideal, where he writes about queerness, bodies, and masculinity. Kent described Netflix's The Boyfriend as the Great British Baking Show equivalent of dating shows, and I couldn't agree more. From what I've seen on Reddit threads and in reviews, the world loves this show as much as we do. The Boyfriend follows a total of 9 queer men in Japan living together in a space called the Green Room. The show starts with 5 men and the rest are brought on one by one as the show progresses. They start a coffee truck together and need to budget their daily expenses, all while navigating waxing and waning romantic feelings for each other. From this interview, you'll hear that I became obsessed with a plot point in the show even before I saw it. It involves chicken and a blender, and it did not disappoint. You'll also hear Kent talk about what came up for him while he watched the food choices and body norms of the men on the show. I also got to ask Kent whether the relational dynamics were particular to the show or are seen in his community of U.S. queer men. The way that the show highlighted food and cooking was highly appreciated by everyone in all of the show feedback I've seen, and many, well, most of us were in love with someone who had command over the kitchen. As someone who's always searching, clips of reality show participants eating have been noticeably absent on many U.S. shows. We might see cute little picnic baskets between couples, see them dining at a nice restaurant, or maybe cooking a special meal, but the day-to-day boring eating is regularly absent. The alcohol, however, is plentiful. In 2022, a lawsuit was filed against Love is Blind US by 3 former contestants who alleged they were deprived of food, water, sleep, and other needs. It was great to see the role of food in The Boyfriend, and I wonder if it's due to cultural norms or if it's heavily influenced by access, money made on the show, and time to cook for the collective, while not being out on dates or competitions 24/7. Kent and I won't spoil what happens at the end of the show, but we do talk about one couple who is sent on an overnight date and someone who has to leave the show early. And with that, let's get into the chat. Or in reality speak, the pods are open. Kent, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Jessica. It's good to be back. I think, is this the 3rd time?
Yeah. You were an ultra-processed parent, and you said fuck Ozempic, and now here you are again. I'm excited.
Yay. Same here.
Yeah. You brought The Boyfriend to my attention. So let's break this part down. The style of the show, we've got the individuals who are in the green room, living their best lives. They get set up with a coffee cart, which made it feel very much real world, like original, like MTV series. They had to like get jobs, put up flyers, whatever it is. So it is them. And where I'm used to like the Vanessa and Nick Lachey coming in and like saying like the pods are open or whatever it is, you know, that people are just like chiming in and being there like in the mix.
The 5 hosts were so fucking cool. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. I loved them.
Gosh, they were so smart. So like they had really real genuine like relational expertise, it felt like.
and even if they didn't, because I think they were celebrities and some of them were famous for being famous from what I could find.
Yeah.
Sorry. One was a pop star.
Yeah, and it's like they just had good insights or good like they pointed out some things that I hadn't noticed about like the relational dynamics. Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah. So these 5 hosts are watching the show as we are watching the show. And then oftentimes at like a cliffhanger or like a dramatic moment, it will stop and like cut to them and their reactions. And so many times they are just like mouth agape, you know, or like heartwarmed and like, oh, or just having like the same reactions or like mirroring my face. And I love them.
Yeah, it felt like really also supportive, and then at times they would be like, Shun's being really weird right now.
Yeah.
It was like at the perfect time, because Shun was a weirdo for most of the show. That's besides the point. Yeah, the hosts.
Unclear, perhaps, in what he wanted and needed in a relationship from somebody whose energy didn't match. I'm not sure.
Totally. Yes. That's a nicer way to put it.
That's fine. My favorite difference from every other reality show, especially reality dating shows, is how food oriented this show was. Like, I noticed it immediately when they're like cooking or eating with each other. People never eat like other Netflix shows. They, there's even lawsuits talking about how they're only given alcohol and not water and not food for some Love is Blind stuff. So the fact that they are all like cooking and coming together over food, I loved it.
Beautiful. Yeah. And just like so true to life, like,
yeah,
so many important conversations happen over dinner or whatever. Like that was really beautiful.
No, I loved that. And just seeing the beautiful food and them like cooking, yes, every day and having each other try it and like give compliments based on food. Loved that. Another difference from shows here is that people were allowed to have jobs. So sometimes people,
they would just be
leave.
Gone.
Yeah.
That was so weird out there. Just like, because you chose at work. Like, what the fuck?
That's it. I mean, when you own your own restaurant or run your own restaurant, like that makes sense. Like not being able to give up a month of your time to...
Right. Cool. And then, I mean, I guess hopefully we give like a spoiler alert just for the whole thing before this, but like, or whatever, maybe it doesn't matter. But Usak being just like, bye, like mid-show.
Bye. Yeah. I was like, does he actually have work overseas? But also, this is not America, so maybe people don't lie on reality shows as much as they lie over here. I feel like if I heard that on like a US Netflix show, I'd be like, that was an excuse. True. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I believed Usak, and that's true that I wouldn't in another show.
And then, yes, also one of the sweeter souls who drew pictures of everyone.
Oh, that was so amazing. That was like, and he, like, incredible artist. Like he got, he like the position of their bodies was like very them. That was so cool.
And you gave me a little spoiler.
Did I?
For my, you knew what was going to be my favorite scene before it was my favorite scene.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Tell me about the favorite scene and what really drew you to it.
Well, I didn't even know that was a spoiler. It was, because it's your the scene was of a chicken smoothie, because you and I had joked before about meat smoothies, chicken smoothies, and is kind of like do people really do this? And then in the show, they have a go-go dancer who comes in the end of the first episode, I think, who is incredibly muscular and just like that look. And they're like about to have dinner, and the group is like, "Can you eat with us?" And he's like, "I have a chicken smoothie that boils chicken, then adds water, grinds it up."
Drinks it.
I just knew you would love that. I knew you would find it fascinating.
No, it was good to get a heads up. I would have been shocked, but was still surprised. Like I knew that when he was taking chicken out of what looked like to be a fanny pack, there was raw chicken pack just like coming out of a fanny pack. It was like, okay, I need to give all of my attention to this moment right here. And I was watching the first few episodes with Shayna, and I was like, okay, Shayna, I just gotta rewind this a little bit. I need to make sure I'm giving it my full attention, because we were watching it with subtitles, and I was like, I need to know exactly what is happening. So yes, we went from raw chicken to a chicken smoothie.
Yeah, and
in what scene?
So gross.
So gross.
It
looked like what it was, which was like plain chicken, and that's it. There was no microgreens, no apples or carrots added.
Yeah, straight up. And two of the guys tried it as well in like little teacups.
Yeah,
they look grossed out.
How did we get on to chicken smoothies at one point?
Oh, like back in the day, back before this.
Like you sent me a recipe. WeHo.
Oh.
Yes, I was going to start trying to get clients in LA and here. And you and I, that was your sandwich board sign.
Oh, yeah, that was the sign. Okay. Yeah.
You suggested my sign say, do you go to the gym twice a day? Do you eat chicken breast smoothies? If yes, you may need my help. And I said, what? And you said, I feel like it's a thing. And then indeed yes. 1 year later, we came full circle.
Yeah. That feels like more than a year ago, but it did only take a year.
Mm-hmm.
I guess with the chicken smoothie of it all, I had heard of the chicken smoothie thing from a gay comedian that was on a podcast talking.
Oh.
And it was interesting because like in both that conversation and the boyfriend, it was kind of just, if I were there, I think I would have like seen it with a little more side eye, been like, okay, this is interesting. And kind of questioned why. I think in those settings, it's just kind of taken at face value. But yeah, I guess I'm just noticing for myself, I'm curious, like the chicken smoothie is about like building muscle, having a very like specific kind of body. And like, if Usak was a friend of mine that I was close to, I might want to like ask them, is that adding to your life? Is that taking away from your life? And I guess I'm, biased against food and food roles. But yeah, I was just curious, why was it taken at face value and not questioned?
Yes, it was another like multi-dimensional, like go-go dancer, very vulnerable person, artist, chicken smoothie maker and drinker, all of those things.
Yeah, that does challenge my preconceived notions of chicken smoothie drinkers. Like, maybe it's one of those things. Well, because it's like people should do whatever the fuck they want with their bodies.
Right.
In that setting, when it was about the finances, it was like, this is now everyone's business. And like, why are they not asking, can you just not for a bit or whatever? So the chicken was costing too much. And
fucking love it. Their daily food allowance was 6,000 yen, which is like $42. And being able to feed like 7 to 9 people on $40 a day is amazing, first of all. And Yusak needed chicken breast for his protein shakes. He was budgeted as 1,000 yen per day for his chicken. But he was going to the store buying 2 kilograms of chicken, which was costing like either 15 to 2,000 yen. So 1/3-ish, up to 1/3 of their budget was going to his chicken smoothies, and he was still eating the meals.
Yeah.
This came down to a budgeting situation. How did you think all of that went?
I thought the rest of the guys were incredibly thoughtful and kind.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have been that. Like, it was like people were very like tactful, and they weren't like, fuck you, just eat like the rest of us. They were like, oh, this is a part of his job.
His business is what they were calling it. It was delightful. Yes.
Yeah. And Usak did, was it the second episode? He did kind of like, we caught a glimpse into kind of his internal life, and it did seem like he was like, who am I? I work out all the time. I drink these smoothies. And it like, I appreciated that. Like, it seemed like he was feeling some distress. And so I noticed that of like, oh, that's what it feels like to have an eating disorder in a certain way. Like, from what I saw of like his distress, the way it was like separating him from others, taking him away from, it was causing him to need to like focus on himself more than the community. So that was just interesting. Not saying he necessarily has an eating disorder, but that it just felt like, oh, that looks familiar. But the guys were very much more understanding than I would have been. Yeah. What did you think about how they were? Yeah.
Dai, I think, was the youngest person on the show at that point, and maybe through all the budgeting conversation, and was the one that was taking the lead. Yes. And I was like, wow, like you were the one advocating on behalf of everyone, and you were the youngest person there. But it was, yes, a very, respectful, kind conversation led by someone in his early to mid 20s.
Right.
It's like, wow. this is real grown up of these guys right here.
Yeah, that was really impressive of how Dai did that.
Yeah. Super skillful. I don't know what I would do if somebody needed a third of my food budget for like one singular smoothie a day. I don't know. Like if we could afford it, that's fine. They said if they sell like 2 more coffees, they can afford his chicken smoothie, which is great, but also, interesting.
Yeah, and I think I'm just thinking out loud with this, but like I know if someone just needed more food,
yeah,
I would not be mad about that.
Yeah,
because it's like it's not a specific diet that's like trying to so I'm just noticing that like, okay, I would not be okay with the chicken, but if it's other food,
I know, right?
And I'm just not I guess I'm just holding the dichotomy of that I would be okay with one and not the other. But,
right. So if somebody was eating like a larger percentage of the whole like dinner meal and be like, whatever. I don't know. It's because us Americans, I don't know, are not as community oriented. I don't know. But I also didn't love that he was going over the amount budgeted. So I think that was part of it too. Like you weren't respecting the fact that this was the budget and it took a lot for people to say it. But, you know, if it had been like a one-time thing and we know this is happening, that'd be fine. But like, because they had to return to the conversation, I didn't love that.
Yeah. And I think that's what kind of perked my interest around what was Usak's internal experience of like, kind of like when there's a boundary and then you're having trouble holding to that boundary, like what in him was like leading to not being able to stick to that boundary? Was it like a compulsion? Was it, I don't know. I was just curious why that. But yeah, I mean, Usak was so tender and fun. And so he definitely grew on me as time went on.
Totally. So it was a group of, I think, 5 initial guys.
Yes.
In the house, getting to meet each other. And then we're told they were going to add a 6th member. So they go to this nightclub and are wondering if the guys on stage, the go-go dancers, which they called them, one of them was going to join. And I loved that moment when they realized that indeed Usak was going to join because they had seen him on like posters is what they said. And I was like, whoa, imagine living with the person you have seen on posters and had been attracted to from those posters.
Yeah, some of them, like when they were talking with him, it looked like they were talking with like a huge celebrity. Like they were just like starstruck.
Yeah.
And then in the sauna, one of them was like, I've never been this close to muscles like that. They were just,
I loved it.
They didn't know how to act. They were just like, whoa, you're here.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of funny.
I did like it. And then there was one who like didn't think he deserved or wasn't worthy of Usak's love because he wasn't. He just didn't think he was deserving of somebody as attractive. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. And that was during that, I think in the 2nd episode, there was a really interesting spot where they started to talk about like their ideals physically. And it was interesting to see how, like, of course, Usak was seen as the most attractive kind of universally, at least from what I remembered, and was just noticing that. But then also there was some, in the other things, there was some anti-fat bias in there. There was like some stuff. But then I think Kazuto said that he didn't care so much about muscles and was okay if his like partner had a soft stomach. And the hosts, I love them. But in that moment, they were like, Kazuto's lying. Like he's too... And I just thought that was like really fascinating that they couldn't believe that Kazuto would not have those like anti-fat bias norms. So that was kind of a bummer to me to see that like the show definitely in like the contestants, there wasn't much body diversity size wise, and that they were kind of upholding those norms as far as like if someone wasn't really focused on thinness and muscularity, then it was like, he's lying. So I love that. But yeah, so it was interesting to see how that came up.
Yes. Somebody was saying they're like, a toned person, no fat on their face, abs, which I was like, Kent and abs. Abs are still a thing.
Oh my God. Yeah, they're always, yeah.
Abs. There was a bit of bisexual discussion that I appreciated.
Totally.
And then in there, still in the club with Yusak, there was some conversation about like winning the month, like somebody just positioning it as like a competition or some sort of winning, which I get. And I would certainly see in like a US Netflix reality show.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a quite different vibe than I'm used to in the dating shows I've seen so far. Like there was, a lot of camaraderie and community amongst the group. It was so sweet.
It was so amazing. So was 22. I wrote this down. I'll correct it earlier. And worried that he would never find love. Somebody was on the show to come out, which was wild to me.
Yes.
Barista and model. Somebody was 34 in the hair and makeup.
Gensei.
Yes, and piano player. So Kazuto is 27, and it was the one that was like an overwhelming favorite. And I gotta say, I was one of those fans too. It may just have been because he arrived with food, right? And I was ready to cook for people. And I was like, wow.
That was pretty hot. Yeah.
Right. And he's, just cooking for everybody. And granted, he was a restaurant owner, but so that was. Yeah.
The command he had of the kitchen and the utensils and all that, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I loved it. I was like, okay, this is who I'm rooting for. I'm a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, was fascinating. Just really, I would be interested to see the show without Kazuto, because really there was a lot of attention to Kazuto, and I'm just curious if there would have been more because there wasn't much mutual liking in the show.
Correct.
There was a lot of someone liking blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What would that have been like? But yeah, Kazuto.
Fan.
And then was it, Taehoon was one of the ones that was going to come out through the show.
Okay, that was who it was.
Then I think Ryota, the model, came out to his parents right before the show, which is that would be a wild thing if you're a parent. And it's I'm gay and I'm also going to be on TV for it.
Yeah. I can't imagine just coming out through the show.
Yeah. That would, and I think Taehoon mentioned that, it's going to add another layer that the world is going to know. It's not just my parents. But,
right.
Yeah.
No, it was good. Okay. So you mentioned some of it as far as the connections, but were there other things that made the show different from the others, from either straight tomatoes or queer ultimatums or other dating type shows?
Well, first of all, so you kind of pressured me to watch the Queer Ultimatum. Or
absolutely pressured you.
And I felt physically uncomfortable that entire show. I kept waiting for it to get better, but it was it was so messy. There was just a lot of stuff there.
Mess.
Yeah. So the boyfriend felt like the British Bake Off show of dating shows, where everyone. It felt kind of playful. We're rooting for each other.
Yeah. We know somebody's going home, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. We're only trying to be our best selves. We're not trying to beat anybody.
Yeah. And they're just the community, the pep talks that people would give to each other. That was a really cool model of just queer men being friends. I thought there was a really cool supportive nature there that was kind of fun.
Yes. The last person to join,
Ikuo,
was really praised for his confidence in the circles of folks. What do you think of him? Oh, he's really confident. And I feel in previous conversations before he arrived, that was a lot of what folks were encouraging amongst each other was, just having more courage and more confidence in being, true in who you are. And it was just, it was very Bake Off. You're totally right. So lovely.
Yeah. Or I really wanted Gensei and Ryota to be a couple. But
Okay.
Kazuto prevented that because Ryota was into Kazuto. So tenderly, like, Ryota was pretty heartbroken about Kazuto. But then also I thought it was funny that in the Shun and Dai, that Shun was like, Dai is too loud and too like enthusiastic. Like, he needs to tone it down. And just like that was so, I hadn't really heard that before. Like,
oh yeah,
he's got to match my shy kind of thing. That was fun. Yeah.
That was fun. And then Dai found his match later on in the show as far as energy levels go. And then, yeah, what a show. What did you think about just the depiction of queerness and gayness overall?
Let's see. I did really appreciate the like tenderness. The thing of like, there is such a, and this isn't exclusive to queerness, but there's like kind of sometimes a hazy line between friendship, romance, and just like the way that people navigate that. I thought it showed like some of the heartbreak of that. There was some of that like ways different people dealt with homophobia and like how much they felt free or not free to like in that way. I definitely like, this is true for pretty much any gay show, but like the exclusivity to like pretty like thin, muscular. I was kind of surprised, like, the show is filmed in Japan, and it felt like there was a pretty like Eurocentric ideal that at least I, in my understanding, have seen as like a Western ideal of like thinness, muscularity, like this very toned, lean look that I guess I kind of thought was more of a Western thing. So I was wondering if there was like some different Western influences there or whatever, but I was just like kind of surprised by that. And was also like, of course, the gay show is going to have people that are talking about abs, and that thankfully that wasn't as big a part of the show by any means as others. But yeah, I noticed that. But it did, like, watching the show made me feel like there's so much potential for sweetness among queer men, and like being tender and caring towards each other. Like that was really heartwarming to see.
Yeah. They all came in with like real intentions to be vulnerable, except for the last guy who was like, I'm here to get a boyfriend.
Yeah. He was surprisingly forward. He was like, yeah, if I like a person, I want to go to bed with them. Like,
yeah. Everybody, well, not everybody, but many people were like, explore my feelings and like be open with them and understand myself more. So I was like, wow, I'm not around a lot of dudes, but this does not seem to be the typical way that dudes navigate a space.
Right. And that there was like, I think it was Ryota and maybe someone else that they liked someone and it wasn't reciprocated, but they were like, I'm satisfied that I just like shared.
Yeah. That was Yusek before he left.
Okay. Yes. Right. Yeah. That was, I guess, in like in a typical dating show, I feel like there would be more competition encouraged, or more like, fuck you. You
like producers
exactly.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to create drama.
Yeah.
Oh, how would US shows be different if their producers weren't trying to stir up shit all the time?
Oh my
Whoa.
God. That would be so nice to see.
It'd be so interesting to see how truly different things are, because yeah, this was a great example for sure.
About the show more generally, I just think, it felt like a really tender and fun show to watch. And it like, I genuinely felt things when like the show was over and saying bye to the people. It was like, there's just so much love and care in that show. So
yeah. Even midway through, again, when Yusak left, they were crying, just like bawling. And I was like, it's been, like 2 weeks or however long it is. And this is just so delightful.
Yeah, that was truly confusing to me. I was like, wait, why are they crying? Like, yeah, that I was shocked that was happening. But yeah, real.
Are emotion, like, are people just like more emotive? Is there more room for emotions? I don't know, but I got to go find out.
Yeah.
I'll be asking around.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that you very quickly were like, okay, I'm going to watch this, compared to how much I drug my feet with the ultimatum. You were just like, yeah. So thank you. And it was really nice to like text you about it as time went on. And yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. Kent, what would you do if you were in a house and staying and paying rent and a go-go dancer moved in?
Well, first of all, not to toot my own horn, but when Mike and I were watching this,
okay,
Mike turned to me and he was like, "You would be good on this show." Because I think his thing was like that I would be a little spicy, also hopefully kind of caring. But yeah, in that I might have brought the show to a little more drama in that setting, like with the chicken smoothie. I think I would have been a little more like, this is not okay. This is like...
Wait, no. Like, what if you in Seattle, in Tacoma, like we're living in a house and the person to sublet the room next door was a go-go dancer and you didn't have to share bills? How would it go?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Different question. I mean, if they were just living their life, I think I would just let them live their life and I would journal about it if it was interesting to me. If they were someone closer that I started to like care about, if we had the kind of relationship where we share, like if there was a challenge in the other's life, like I would maybe gently check in. Cause yeah, it's like, I think seeing the world through my eyes, like if I see chicken smoothie, I think, disorder, I think kind of restriction, keeping your body tight into like some ideal. So to me, that feels like a trap, and so I know I would bring that bias, but it's like, I guess maybe there's a chill way to do that. I don't know. For me, that would never be a thing. Like if I'm drinking chicken smoothies ever in my life, that's a problem. So like,
okay, that's a red flag.
Yeah, red flag.
Okay.
But I guess it's like, yeah, as time goes on, I do realize like sometimes I do need to zoom out from just my perspective, because then I can start to be like judging people for things that aren't my business. So generally, I would want to let people live their life. I know if it were me, that it would be a problem. But
okay.
Yeah.
So what makes Mike think that you would be a good person for the show and or your own show? I need to hear this.
Let's see. I mean, the word he used was spicy, which I think in this day and age means porn, right? Like when it's like spicy content, they mean like sex.
So sex for sure. But no, I think it's more like sassy.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I love that you just went with sexy. Yeah. You were like, yes, rather than clarify. And
I guess maybe he just, thought I would bring some talking about some of the dynamics. Maybe there was some like kind of working around the dynamics or unsaid things. And I tend to want to say the unsaid things. But again, wouldn't have matched the vibe of the show, I guess. So if in another universe there was a US one, I would have totally do that. Like it seemed like a very interesting like social experiment.
Which is how Love is Blind markets itself, a social experiment.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's what they say.
And it did remind, like there was in college, I lived in a house with 8 guys once, and then also a like Christian frat of like 20 guys. And that was a nightmare. But the house with 8 guys, that some parts of it did remind me of the green room, like just kind of the having meals together randomly or something. Like there's something kind of nice about that. I had a question for you of like, as a non-queer man, as an outsider, like if you had any thoughts that were curious.
So many. At some point, I think it was Shun who was making a relationship chart, drawing out the relationships. Anyhow, they were drawing out like the relationship triangles. We never saw it, but it was giving L word. It was giving like, yes, the 6 Degrees of Shane or something like that. That was very cute. And it was all pointing towards Kazuko at that time. There was just a random time when somebody was giving somebody else a foot massage, just like, and I was like, this is delightful. Like, I wouldn't touch someone else's feet, but maybe in other countries, people know how to clean them rather than in this country. It's fine. The sleepover date. So they were to choose somebody to spend a night away with. And if the other person chose them, then they got to go away. And they had everybody in the cast pack a bag as if you're going to go away. And then you come out and you see who gets to go. And only one pair goes. So I was just like, that is dirty. Like that's just rude.
Yeah.
That's not the order.
They have to go back knowing that their crush didn't pick them and unpack their bag. It's like, that's so sad.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's just rude. There was not the talking shit that, like, in the debriefs, even between people they were, sharing a crush with, like, there wasn't just a lot of shit talking.
Yeah, that was really nice. I appreciated that.
Yeah. Like, this is the dream. There's a question at some point during that sleepover where one asked the other, do you want to wash each other just like in the shower after already coming out of the spa? I was like, oh.
That was so forward. But that was Alan to Kazuto, right?
Yes.
Alan was not my favorite. For some reason, like, I was confused why Kazuto chose him of all people. But yeah, Alan was very forward. He was like, let's watch each other. And Kazuto was like, there's literally a camera here. Like, this is so weird.
I know. Alan came in and was like, let's push the beds together. Let me massage you. Take off your shirt for me to massage you. And I was like,
yeah. And Kazuto seemed uncomfortable. I was trying to figure out, like, was it because there are cameras or does it actually, but yeah, Alan was.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't love that.
Yeah. Yeah. The massage thing felt like, okay, you should pick up that Kazuto isn't, like, enthusiastically into this. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't love that. And I mean, it didn't necessarily bode well for the summary of that event for them. But, we have not said that one of the hosts was a drag queen and, like, slowly over time, all of a sudden, like, started appearing in drag. And I was, that
was really fun. And yeah, for the first episode, she was in drag. They were like, oh, wait, by the way, you're in drag now.
A little update to the cast here.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, and it was cool to see, like, it was just interesting to see queerness kind of outside of the cultural references I'm used to, like Drag Race or like any of the usual pop stars. It was just like a really interesting look at, like, what. Yeah, and I looked up everyone on Instagram, and it's just, like, fascinating, all their different vibes on Instagram and stuff.
Okay. I like that. I love a deep dive.
Of all the people, of the hosts and of the contestants, the only one I follow is the older guy of the hosts.
Okay.
He, to me, is so funny, and, like, he just, like, I think he's straight, and just, like, I just so appreciated that he was just, like, on the show, and yeah, he seemed really
in it
fun.
To be in it. His face was amazing, appropriate, and all. He was reflecting mine so many times.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's great. That was good. Oh, something else that stood out to me is that there wasn't ever anyone, from what I can recall, who was like, I'm into these three people. It was always like, who is the one that you're into, or who do you have a crush on?
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was always
thought about that
one.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah, it was always just one person at a time.
Yeah, and no, that was in the edits. There wasn't like the platitudes of like, everybody's, attractive. The question was like, who do you have a crush on? Who is it?
Huh.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting and definitely like left a dynamic there, like a unidirectional dynamic. It wasn't like a web necessarily like, oh, I am liking these people. We could get an orgy going since the four of us are,
Right.
yes, enjoying each other. Yeah, it was definitely like a binary, like two people situation. No dating around.
Good point.
Is that how you find queer men are? I mean, it seems like that's how you and your husband got together. It's just like a beeline towards each other and never looking back.
Well, yeah, Mike and I a little bit were talking about who like we were in the show.
Yes.
Because I know when I went to the gay Bible study where Mike and I met, I was beeline to Mike. Like,
yeah,
my eyes were on Mike and I just like, it was that way from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It took Mike a second to like notice me, to kind of like, it took him more. So I was more decisive. I think that was, I forgot who on the show was more decisive. I think I guess my experience tends to be that it is like a one person-y kind of experience. And like there can be like crushes, or like Mike and I were at a wedding a couple years ago and I just like had this like the crush of the night like person.
Nice.
And then it was like kind of just one of those funny things, but it wasn't like a long-term thing. I need to ask some of my gay friends about this. Like how do they experience it? Because wow, you just blew my mind with that question. Like, I think I do experience it more like on an individual basis. But what others like experiences in that. So, yeah.
Yes, do ask and do tell. I feel like if I were on a reality show with a bunch of people in their 20s and I was in my 20s, I would just be looking around and just like seeing what lands. And
yeah, I mean, good. That's also like important to put myself back in 20s, back in a show. I'm sure that would be a different dynamic.
Yeah, I don't know. But do ask your friends, because these folks, I mean, we're 20s and some 30s. We're, very individual oriented. So
which did lead to less drama, I guess.
And more heartbreak.
More heartbreak. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That part was sad.
Yeah.
This was delightful. I will say, for one last chicken smoothie reference, I really did expect to dislike the person who would be drinking and making a chicken smoothie. And that, again, with the assumptions that it wasn't, oh God, it wasn't Joe Rogan. It wasn't any of the other podcast bros who I assume would be eating their very clean, pasture-raised, hormone-free, plain chicken breast smoothies. Yeah,
that was good for me to see that, like, Usak was so tender and multidimensional and and not that I think chicken smoothie drinkers are like a class of people I need to humanize or something. Like, it's not like...
Okay, to be fair, I've never seen or known a specific person to do this, so it is fully my assumption that I've built up. Okay, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like worried about my assumptions about chicken smoothie drinking people, but it was interesting that it was,
Side note, if any of y'all out there drink chicken smoothies or know people who do email. Let us know if it's just common and we don't hear about it.
Yeah, if you feel targeted by my jokes, I would be curious to hear. Like, I guess I'm curious, like, why?
I'm always curious, which is how we ended up with the podcast.
Yeah. And you do make it awkward with, I don't know if I can mention this, you can delete if not, but the times thing and like, just like you are really out there, like, seeing all the comments and people like really are getting worked up by the work you're doing. So that's
worked up by the work. Oh, that's good. Thank you for coming on. I can't wait for an excuse to bring you back.
Thank you. Yeah, I love chatting with you, whether it's recorded or not recorded. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat.
For sure. Thanks again to Kent for coming back on the show. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the show and also thoughts on our thoughts. If you have feedback on our extended debrief about chicken smoothies or anything else, you can email the show at makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com. And as you heard, I took a video of me and Shayna watching the smoothie being made and tested, along with the host's response to said smoothie making, and you can find it over on the Patreon. Until next time, friends, make it awkward. This has been Making It Awkward. I'm Jessica Wilson. The best way to support the show is rating, reviewing, and subscribing. You can become a sustaining supporter of the show via the Patreon linked in the comments. This show is edited and mixed by Jen Jacobs, who has yet to try a chicken smoothie. And it's a production of The Body Politic, supported by all of you and the legacy of Sacramento Outboard Services.